Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we are taking a look at Surplus of Sloths from Weird Giraffe Games. This is an upcoming, very small form, almost pocket game that they have coming to crowdfunding soon, where we are going to be drafting these different colors of sloths, trying to form runs in our hand, and scoring the sloths that have fallen down into our surplus net at the end of the game. And if that sounds silly, it should, because it is a very lighthearted, quick-moving drafting game. Now, to be respectful to all the sloths that are watching, I'm going to be recording the rest of this video at 0.5 times speed to make sure that you're able to keep up with how I am describing and talking about the game. So Surplus of Sloth is going to be a 2 to 4 player game. Actually, I realized that I don't need to do that. You can just set YouTube to 0.5 times speed. So if you are a sloth, be sure to set that speed to the right timing. So in Surplus of Sloths, we are going to have 5 different colors of sloths, each represented by a different species, what I thought was kind of cool, as well as 4 rainbow colored baby sloths. And I'm going to put these off to the side for now because they're actually used for a variant of play that I'll tell you guys about in a little bit. Now, depending on the number of players, you're going to select a number of colors to use in the game. In a 2-player game, you'll use 3 of them. In a 3-player game, 4. And in a 4-player game, you'll use all 5 of them. Now, if we were just setting up for a 2-player game, we'll select 3 of these sloths, and you're going to shuffle these up to form the deck that you're going to play with in the game. So once you have your 3 colors of sloths shuffled up, this is the deck that you're going to be using to play for the rest of the game. So the first thing you're going to do is deal 3 cards to each player. So again, we're setting up for an example 2-player game, so both players would get 3 cards, and then you deal out 2 rows of cards equal to the number of players plus 1. Now the last thing that you do as part of setup is that both players are going to select 1 card from their hand, put it face down, and that's going to start the surplus net that is going to be at the bottom of the board here. Let's say these 2 players pick these cards, and they're each going to go down here. These represent the surplus sloths, and those are going to get added to depending on which cards are drafted each round of the game. Now, the way that a round is going to take place is really simple. The starting player is going to select either the top or the bottom row to take cards from. The second player will take one of the 2 remaining cards, and then the third card is going to fall down into the surplus net that is down here. So let's say this player wanted to take this green card, the other player could take this purple card, and then the final purple card would get added to the net down here, and you're going to form these 3 stacks of colors, and then you deal out another 3 cards, and then the other player will start choosing either the top or bottom row to take cards from, doing the same thing. Now, the way that you're actually going to score points in Surplus of Sloths is that at the end of the game, we are going to look at every player who has the biggest consecutive run for each of these colors. So the person who has the longest run of green, purple, and brown in this game. Then whoever has the largest consecutive run is going to claim the pile of Surplus Sloths, adding up all of these values and scoring that at the end of the game. And so each of these decks are numbered from 1 through 7 with 3 of these X cards that you might have noticed. And those X cards are really the thing that make this game really quite interesting because they serve 2 separate purposes. The first is that an X can be used as a wild in your hand to continue a run. Let's say that these are the purple cards that I had at the end of the game. So I have a 4, a 7, and 2 X's. So to form a consecutive run, I could use the 4, I could use the X as a 5, I could use the X as a 6, and then I could use the 7 to complete that run, giving me a run of 4. If this was the longest run between all of the players, I would score the purple pile of sloths at the end of the game. Now let's say at the end of the game, this is what my surplus pile of purple sloths look like. I would first count up all of the values here, so 5, 6, and 8. I would score 8 points. But now those X's that I mentioned also have a second function. While they can be used to form wilds and consecutive runs, they also act as point multipliers if they are found in the surplus area. So if you have a single X, you double your score. If you get 2 X's, you triple it. And if you get 3 X's, you quadruple it. So in this case, I have 8. I would multiply that by 2 for the 1X, giving me 16 points for that purple sloths. And so having that X card act as a wild to try to win the surplus piles, but also being such a huge factor in scoring points once they get to the surplus piles is a really interesting decision point. Do you want to get those X's to really secure and win the color, or do you want to let them fall to the bottom so that they multiply the amount of points? If you're feeling confident, you're able to kind of try to manipulate it so that you score more points. but also the more X's there are, the more attractive it's going to look like to your opponents to try to win that respective color. And so it's a really interesting kind of mind game of letting things fall and trying to be coy and acting like you're not trying to win it, while also trying to secure cards. And since these are only numbered 1 through 7 with 3 X's, it's really easy to keep track of the number of cards and how many are out there. You can get a pretty good sense of if you have a dominant position with the respective cards. So here's an example of what your game might look like at the end of Surplus of Sloths. After you finish drafting all of the cards in the deck and emptying out the 2 rows, you're then going to go into scoring. So down here we have our surplus net, and these are the cards that we are going to be scoring depending on which player had the longest consecutive runs. So over here I have player 1's cards, and over here I have player 2's cards. So you'll start with the purple here, so you could see player 1 on the left had a 1, a 4, and a 5. So they're missing that connective tissue between 1 and 4, so this 1 is useless, and so they have a 2-card consecutive run. And over here, player 2 kind of blew it away with the X's, so they have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, since player 2 has the longest consecutive run of purple cards, they are going to score the purple sloths here. So they are going to get 7 and 6, 13 times 2 because there's a single X here, meaning that they're going to score 26 points for this set of sloths. The ones that they use for the consecutive run get discarded. They're not going to be scored at the end of the game. Next, we'll move on to scoring the next set of sloths, the brown ones here. So player 1 has a 1, 2, and 3 for a 3-card run, and player 2 has an X and a 7, meaning they have a 2-card run. So player 1 is going to score the brown sloths here, which is going to be a whopping amount of points because there's 2 X's here. So it would be 6, 4, and 5 for 15, times 3 for the 2 X's, meaning they're going to score 45 points for this set of sloths. So they would claim that, and then you would do the same thing for the green cards. After that, you tally up whoever has the most amount of points, and the game is over. Now, the other variant for play is pretty interesting, and that is going to use the baby sloths that I had shown before. Now, these are kind of rainbow colored and have a value of 0. And now you can choose to shuffle these in at the start of the game, and they're going to introduce a new type of sloth that you're going to be able to draft throughout the game. Now, the baby sloths are really interesting because when you do draft them from the row there, you're able to take a card from your hand and put it into the scoring area instead of keeping it in your hand to create a consecutive run. So you're giving up a little bit of that security of, okay, I have a really good strong hand of consecutive cards here. You're able to bounce one back into the area and try to hopefully score it at the end of the game. This is offset a little bit by the little baby sloth being used as a wild 0, so they do still contribute to the overall number of cards that you have in a run, but if you don't have the lower numbered values, right, you're not able to use that 0 to build a consecutive run. So it creates just another little bit of an interesting decision point of if you want to bounce cards into the surplus area to score, while also giving them up from creating a longer consecutive run. They're a neat little addition, and after playing once without them, they pretty much always get shuffled in. They don't add too much complexity, and I think they add another interesting decision point of how you want to manage your hand of sloths. And if you're enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing to join the channel. I do a lot of previews and reviews and playthroughs and all sorts of board game content, and I would love to have you on board. Anyway, back to the sloths. So Surplus of Sloth does what I really want out of a small form, pocket, micro game, whatever you want to call it. And it's taking this core mechanic, which is, set collection and drafting in this case, and giving just a little bit of a twist to make things interesting. And I think this is a cool twist on set collecting and drafting. I think it packs a lot of good decisions into a small package. I think having the extra card in a row that you didn't draft fall down to be used for scoring, I think is really neat. And so it creates a really interesting point in the game where you feel comfortable enough that you have enough cards in your hand to win that specific color, and you're okay just letting them fall down so that you're able to score more points, versus your opponent seeing that and also trying to contest you and trying to not let cards fall down because you're going to score a ton of points because you likely are going to win it, but is it worth it more to deny you the points that they are falling down into the surplus net? And I think honestly it's a really unassuming game, but it has a lot of interesting stuff in it. And it's also worth saying that it's just, look how compact this is. It's in a little tuck box here. I'm a fan of pocket games. I'm a fan of just micro games. And I just think it's fascinating what designers are able to do with such kind of a limited space and creating really interesting games. So I think that if you're a fan of drafting, of set collection, of this kind of just very snappy back and forth gameplay. It works really well at 2 players. I played it a lot at that. I think it scales up nicely at 4. It doesn't ever take too long. Turns are very quick. And it's just an overall really nice package. I think this is like $9 on BackerKit. And you know, you could do a lot worse for $9 with a game. I think there's a lot of game in this little tuck box here, and I think it's definitely worth checking out. So if you like small form games, if you like drafting and set collection, definitely check out Surplus of Sloths. I had a really good time with it. And so you can find Surplus of Sloths over on BackerKit, which I'll have a link to in the description below. But I also want to shout out one other thing that BackerKit is doing, and that is this thing they're calling Pocketopia, which is like 20 plus small form, easy to learn, quick playing games, kind of pocket micro game type things. And I'm really passionate about these, right? I do a lot of button shy coverage, which I think are kind of like the gold standard of 18 card small format games. But there's a lot of other publishers doing really interesting designs in really small packages. So if you like small form micro games, I think it's really worth checking it out. There's RPGs, there's dice games, there's kind of card and drafting games like what I talked about today, and there's a lot of neat stuff over there. So just wanted to draw some attention to it, since I think that the small game format is just really interesting. Like I said before, I think it really forces you to be innovative when you're really working with limited resources, and I just love to see what folks are able to come up with. So go check that out if you're interested. Anyway, thank you guys again for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning about Surplus of Sloth. I had a good time with it, so be sure to check it out if you're interested. If you have any questions about the game, let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.